Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show, the show that celebrates all the amazing people working across the state of Mississippi to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. Today's a very special show because I'm going to be joined here shortly by my friend, the mayor of the city of Gulfport, Billy Hewes, who recently announced that he will not be seeking reelection. And according to the conversations that he and I have been having, he is not going to be seeking a political office, as he says it, ever again. But believe me, I believe the future in terms of Billy being a private sector leader will be very significant, because you can't be young and vigorous like he is and not really wanting to still make a difference. And he's got a thriving business that he works with his wife and family, and he's going to be a busy guy, even though he's not going to be mayor of the city of Gulfport any longer. But without any further ado, let me welcome my friend Billy Hewes back to the Ricky Matthews Show while we for a conversation looking back on his tenure in politics. Billy, how you doing, my friend?
Doing just fine, Ricky. I appreciate the setup there. For me, it's a little too early to look back, but it won't hurt us to kind of do a little bit of talking. But we still got a lot of work to do in the next year.
Yeah, well, we'll actually reflect on that as well here in just a second. Hey, listen, I remember the first time I met you. You may not remember this, but you had just gotten out of high school and you were headed to Southern Miss. And I was working for the Sun Herald, and I was working in advertising at the time. And your dad was one of my clients. And I went by, and I really enjoyed working with your dad. Incidentally, he was a terrific customer and someone that the Hewes family in general was incredibly committed to the community for many, 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 many years. But I remember you were just you were headed to Southern Miss. You became I think a Phi Tau there. You were a drummer and enjoying life. You went on to Southern Miss and had a terrific career there. But you never lost sight of this legacy your family passed about community service. That had a big influence on you, didn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. We were made to understand very early on is that you get involved and engage in your community. And that's for everything from working in the family business from a very early age, doing whatever was required to get the job done, and take that ethic to whether it was school, whether it was extracurriculars, just anything, but to make your community better than you found it, but understanding that it's a daily commitment that you have to have. But I remember our encounter as well, and actually I was just out of college and had started my insurance career, hired by Nationwide. And Dad and I combined our agencies, and I still remember you calling on the business, and we were in that tiny little building over there on St. Charles in Orange Grove, not the building we're in now, but so, we started from pretty humble beginnings, but the relentless pursuit of perfection.
That's actually right. That's Northwood Hills Norwood Village Shopping Center, right? Is that right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, man, that's a long time ago. We go through so many chapters of our lives. That's just one important chapter. When did you kind of feel a tug toward politics? Did you always have an interest in it?
I had an interest in the process. I didn't wake up, or live saying one day I'm going to be in the legislature, one day I'm going to be the mayor. It was for me a logical progress. Looking back, I didn't know it at the time, but I was always engaged and involved. That goes back to that ethic. If I was going to be involved in something, I would typically get engaged at the officer level, go through the chairs, provide some leadership, and I just learned it along the way. But in high school, I was that weird kid who decided I wanted to learn parliamentary procedure. And it served me well. As a matter of fact, when I first got to the Senate, a lot of them were amazed that I knew how to actually run a meeting, and not everybody does. And I took that for granted. But so those early formative years and things that I got engaged with, I was, I had a bit of a shy bone in some respects, and most people would find that hard to believe. But public speaking was not my forte. And I knew that if I was going to be effective, I needed to be able to develop those skills. And so, today people say I make it look easy, but it's still not my favorite thing to do. But I enjoy engaging and talking to folks. So, looking back, I think I was always driven in that regard, Ricky. But when I was 28, 29, I decided to run for the legislature, and had a lot of folks through the JC's organization, up through my grandmother's bridge club, and everybody came together. And having grown up in a city that knows your family certainly helps from a name ID standpoint. You know, my father and his brother had Hewes Brothers department store. A lot of folks had shopped there, and my brothers and I went. You know, we would have to get there before anybody and do all the janitorial work, vacuum, clean the bathrooms, put out the stock before they even opened the doors, clean the windows, and sell after that. So there were a lot of expectations that we had to, live up to. But that again provided that ethic for us to go through. And I learned a lot about dealing with people through the retail side of things too. And that was before Dad got into insurance and real estate. So. It's been a journey for sure. You
think about, I've had this conversation many times before, but the time you spend in the legislature, your leadership roles in the Senate, it was a great sort of foundation for you going into mayor, wasn't it? I mean, you look back on your time in the legislature, and you saw it all. You met so many people. You got to understand how Gulfport fits into the overall state. Man, it was invaluable time, wasn't it?
Yeah. If you're going to be effective at anything, you have to be relationship oriented. And if you don't appreciate relationships and getting to know one another and building trust, then you're not going to succeed no matter what your career path is. And in politics, that is probably as true as anything. It's a stereotype and malign profession, but there are some very honorable people in politics. But it just takes one or two bad apples to spoil the whole bunch. But the fact of the matter is, people who get engaged, and we don't have enough people doing that. Those that do, most of them are doing it for the right reasons. And we were at a forum last night. And people want to, get upset because we disagree. We're supposed to have differences of opinion. And I've said on your show and a lot of others that in today's day and age, people treat differences of opinion as declarations of war. And that's so tragic because I came to understand that a guy told me if we both agree on everything, one of us isn't necessary. And what that basically means is we have to invite discourse. We have to invite differences of opinion, which helps us grow and understand. And sometimes it affirms what you've been thinking all along. And sometimes you say, maybe I need to step back and consider another path. But the end goal is to make the state better, to make the city better, to make our lives better in our community. And we don't have all the answers. We're expected to sometime, but we have to collaborate. And it is sometimes hard. Governing is hard. The difference between the state level and the local level is night and day. I didn't have an appreciation for that. People describe the legislature as laboratories of democracy. And I thought, well, that's trite, that's cute. But at the same time, there's some truth to that because they take issues that have come to them and try to fix them. But those of us at the local level are the ones that have to implement that change to a great degree. So it's less partisan, it's less political, it's just very practical at the local level. And then, Ricky, going from the legislative branch to the executive branch was very different, but actually that's probably helped me as mayor as much as anything, is understanding how a legislative body is supposed to work, with me working with a council that often has their own agenda and their own designs. And, you have 7 very distinct personalities that you have to work that relationship on a regular basis.
Listen, I had a terrific 1-hour conversation with Speaker White recently, and he comes from a small town, lives in a small town. He was an alderman. He's a city lawyer. He's kind of done all these things, and of course he'd been in the legislature for a while before he became the Speaker of the House. But he said something really, I think, not only valuable, but I think also powerful. And it's the point that he makes. I hate that some state leaders run on a platform that you can't reach across the aisle. The world that we're in today, you alluded to it a bit, but it's hard to be in public office in the social media world. You and I have had many conversations about that, but everything has to be polarizing. You can't work with people you disagree with and so on. But what Jason White said, and I think your tenure in the legislature, certainly your work as the mayor, I think says that you believe this as well. But he says it's hard to hate somebody you know. And so he works hard to build relationships. So it's okay to disagree. And you're right. Disagreements these days, too often, unfortunately, are a declaration of war. And he just says, I'm not going to abide by that. I'm going to, like, for example, before he got voted the Speaker of the House, the Democratic caucus asked him to come speak to them, and he did. And this is even before he, was voted as the House Speaker. But there's a lot to be said for that. I wish more leaders would take that approach. We'd be a better place, wouldn't we?
Jason's been a real breath of fresh air. We've benefited from good leadership at the state level, but I think he has taken it to a different place. I think when Speaker Gunn embraced the state flag, I think that was a huge deal. I think Jason taking a different approach on how we work across and reach across lines is important. In today's day and age, some people want to make things about race. Some people want to use religion as a weapon. It's just, those are uncalled for. And so the knee-jerk default is incivility, especially driven by social media. So we've got to get back to a better place. But I think Jason is providing some good leadership in that regard.
Yeah, it's tough, and that's a good learning. But the main reason for mentioning that is that you have worked hard as well to develop relationships, and you, I think, subscribe to the point that it's hard to hate people that you know. That's for sure. Hey, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Mayor Billy Hewes. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. We have my friend Mayor Billy Hewes of the city of Gulfport. We'll get back to some open issues and things he still wants to accomplish as the mayor of Gulfport. We're looking back a little bit because he's not going to be running for re-election, and has had a long, successful political career, and we just kind of chatting about that and reminiscing a bit. Listen, Billy, when I was working at the Sun Herald, I had a terrific mentor in Roland Weeks. And of course, he and George Schloegel were very close, and Jerry St. Pay and a long list of others. So, you and I, we had the opportunity to be inspired by a lot of leaders who really understood that the coast is going to be stronger working together. And so one of the first things I did as a publisher of the Sun Herald is launch what we call the South Mississippi Strategy. We brought the newspaper back to Pascagoula and Jackson County and really worked hard to increase our fingerprint so that we could speak to the region. One of the things that you worked hard, in fact, it was just a year after you were in office, was the One Coast Initiative. And I want you to know that I think the best example there's a lot of examples. I don't want to say it's the best example, a lot of examples, but I had a terrific conversation with Fofo Gillett just in the past week or so. I love visiting with Fofo. But he really sung your praises about the relationship that the two of you have. I mean, of course, you share, like I do, a love of music, and he says you guys are going to be friends long after you're not mayor. But the work that you guys have done together to bring those two cities together, because in the old days that wasn't the case. That's been a pleasure, hasn't it?
He's one of the best friends, political or otherwise, that I have, and getting to know him and Serena has been remarkable. But what a lot of it comes down to, Ricky, and he recognizes this, is issues and opportunities don't stop or begin at city lines or political subdivisions. They transcend a lot of things, and we've been able to collaborate, understanding that we're better together. The One Coast started with the idea of that rising tide lifts all boats, but it really came, and this is one of my thoughts that you talk about when you first start something as mayor: how do we pull the coast together better? Because in Jackson, a lot of times we, as one of yours and my friend says, we're often successful despite ourselves. We have very strong personalities as leaders, and our own respective communities are very distinctive, which is an awesome thing. But we would let folks divide us over those differences as opposed to celebrating. And I talk about a cultural gumbo. It all makes us better because we're all different, but we're neat. But the reality is, outside of this coastal community, people don't see us as respective cities. They call us the coast. They see us as the coast. And we're still, on a national scale and a regional scale, still undiscovered. And when people come here, they really like what they see. They like the people. They love the food. There's so many great things to have here. And we have never really pulled together as we could. And so I think it's those amenities and those natural resources and the attitude of our people that carries us regardless of what conflicts or differences we may have. But We just wanted to start a dialogue and a grassroots movement to change how we view ourselves, which in turn changes how others view us, and understand that we can be very effective politically. Understand that if there's a win for our city or the next city, it's a win for all of us. Phil Bryant uses the term cooperation, which I love. We're going to compete with one another. I want to get as much as I can for Gulfport, but I know it's not going to all come here. So I certainly wanted to stay in the region because our people will have jobs. They will have places to go, things to do, and it will enrich us all. And so it was slow to be adopted by some. There are very parochial mentalities. There is some of that prejudice that still exists. But for the most part, I think we're in a better place, a different place, because people did see the benefit of having this discussion, even though life does get in the way with the demands we have as mayors and in our respective cities as leaders. But that goes back to that relationship discussion. We are better for the relationships we have. And if you get to know somebody like Fofo and I have, man, we enjoy each other's company every single time. So how can I get upset about something going on over there? And if I can help them, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
And they return that favor too. And I feel that way about my colleagues across this coast. We have some really good leadership at the municipal level.
Well, no, we could actually spend 2 shows talking about one coast, that as a region we're stronger. And as a region, we're stronger because of the unique diversity that is in this collection of small towns, each with its own unique sense of place. That's what makes it so cool. I'll give you one more quick example, and that is Mayor Knight of Moss Point. And God, what an inspiration he is, man. I love spending time with him. He's reinvented himself 100 times. Here he is in his 80s and still giving back and showing no signs of letting up. It's just incredible, really. But he got the Rising Tide Award from the Gulf Coast Business Council, and he talks about how you guys help him, and he appreciates it. And that's what it should be about, right?
He is such a class act, and he's an inspiration to all of us. And talk about the breath of fresh air that Moss Point needed as well. So it's just been really a delight working with him. I'll tell you another is Jimmy Rafferty. From Pastor Shan. He has been so engaged at the municipal league level and others, Kenny Holloway in Ocean Springs, Mike Favre in Bay St. Louis, George Bass in Long Beach. George's going to be retiring too. And I don't want to leave anybody out because, Nancy DePrio up in Diamond Head. It's remarkable. Jay Trapani in Waveland. I can name them all, and Rusty Craven Diablo. He's been there forever and doing a great job for us. So it's that collaboration, and I think we see more opportunity here every day because of what's going on. Casey doing what he's doing in Gaucher with that new music venue. That's a cool thing too. So every little victory goes to enhance the experience that folks who want to come here and find out what South Mississippi's about. There's plenty to choose from.
There is, man. So many stories, so much to talk about. Gosh, it's great though, and because I've had the opportunity to talk to all those folks that you just mentioned on this show, I know for a fact where they're coming from. I know for a fact that they're buying in and they're learning, and these regular get-togethers and teleconferences and conversations that are taking place. When one is hurting, they're all hurting, and there's just willingness to sort of reach out and do what we can. You need a new, is it fire chief or police chief in Moss Point? The assistant, is it police chief? Assistant police chief or fire chief? Anyway, Kyle, do you remember? Fire chief, there you go. Fofo goes over to the council meeting in Moss Point and spoke about how Mayor Knight in Moss Point was important to him in his early days of his business, and he's thrilled that his assistant fire chief is able now to be the fire chief in Moss Point. That's what One Coast means. That's what One Coast is about, and it's just terrific to see those kind of things happening.
Well, look, we cross-pollinate a lot. It's by nature. Some people say we steal from each other a lot. But, Jay Willis over in Pascagoula, one of our rising stars here, went to work for him over there. Pastor Jan, their harbor master, has come to Gulfport now. So we've, and I think one of Gulfport's our finance folks have gone to Pastor Jan, and so it just. Again, there's opportunity. We had one of our leaders go to Poplarville. So it's just it's part of, you want to promote folks. And if they are doing well in your organization and have opportunities elsewhere, you really want them to stay with you. But look, if there's a brighter star for them to chase and an opportunity, and particularly if they're going to stay in the area, that's one more piece of our network that we have that helps us all be more effective collectively.
Hey, listen, one of the things that Kenny Holloway and I talked about, I mean, one of the things he hit the ground running talking about is the need for infrastructure improvement in Ocean Springs. And he was really working hard. It's not sexy, man. It's not sexy, but it is a requirement. You go back in your history as the mayor of Gulfport, and you were immediately involved in street and infrastructure bond improvements for streets and water and sewage master plans. Those two together total about $30 million. But, I mean, you got to do those things. Again, it's not sexy, but if you don't do them, you can't grow.
You have to take care of your infrastructure. And what a lot of folks get frustrated with, and we do too, is you look for money from different areas. And if any of it comes from the state or the federal government, it usually has limitations on where you can put it. You know, we don't get to put all the money where we want to put it. So you either put some in sidewalks. Why'd you build that sidewalk? I said, well, that's what the money was for. Why'd you build that road? That's what it's for. Why'd you put the road in sewer? Well, because the sewer monies are different and there are rules that go with it. So it's lit, and there's never enough money. But there's always a need for infrastructure improvement. So even though people, will sometimes criticize and antagonize about it, it's okay. It comes with the territory. And part of it is educating those who want to be educated, and those that don't, we have to do the best we can with the resources available to us. And so, for all, and I told a fellow yesterday, I said, look, as public officials, we expect criticism, and we really embrace it if it's constructive. Now, if it's just to do a character tear down, or just to be ugly or uncivil, it doesn't serve anybody any good purpose, but to break down those relationships, and it inhibits progress. So if we're going to criticize, either let's do it with a solution, or run for office yourself.
Right. That's exactly what I was about to say.
And that's how we'll do some good.
Yeah, well, listen, we're having a conversation with the mayor of Gulfport, Billy Hewes. When we come back, we'll talk about a bunch of initiatives. And I also want to talk about the Mississippi Municipal League and why that's important to the overall conversation. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. We're thrilled to have Citizen Bank as a primary sponsor of this show. They've been terrific. And this great to have them as a regular sponsor of this show. I really appreciate it. We appreciate it. Billy Hewes, the mayor of Gulfport, we're sort of reflecting a bit. He's not running for reelection, and it's just a great opportunity to kind of catch up a little bit. We're going to get into some initiatives here in just a second, but you may remember recently SuperTalk Mississippi did a live remote. We do it every year, in fact. A live remote from the Mississippi Municipal League, and it's been for me an opportunity to get to know what that organization is all about. And what I recall well about my career is that I learned early in my life that reaching out and learning from others and learning best practices and never assuming you know the answer to the problem. Look what others have gone through. Don't rebuild the wheel if you don't have to. The Mississippi Municipal League is this powerful organization composed of cities from across the state of Mississippi, and to really appreciate how strong they are, you have to go to the Mississippi Municipal League meeting at the Coast Coliseum, because when you get there, even if you get there early, the parking lot is full. It's a very significant group of very engaged people. But, you look back on your time at the Mississippi Municipal League, and you saw early in your career that was really sort of a critical thing to be involved in terms of learning from others. And you became a leader in that organization. So as you reflect on that organization, how important was your leadership there? Again, I think the theme of this whole show may be about relationships, but, people can't know you until they get to know you. And it was critical there. And so, again, this state has 5 very distinct regions, and unless you travel to those or get engaged in organizations like the Municipal League or any trade association, you're not going to understand some of the challenges that they have. And
Gulfport is the second largest city in the state. The coast is really a unique experience. So I think it's great that they have their annual meeting down here all the time. But just engaging with them, they've got a really good dynamic on their officer corps where they rotate it between 3 different regions every single year. So you have a good rotation and representation from different parts of the state at the municipal league. So they got good leadership with Sherry Vize. When I was the president of the league is when COVID hit. And so I actually had a carryover year. So I was doing it for 2 years, but the league helped really coordinate a lot of discussion points, a lot of forums, mostly electronically like this one, amongst leaders from throughout the state, talking with the governor, talking with state leaders and others about what the challenges are, what we're seeing, keeping communication lines open. So it was a challenging time, but it's a wonderful time. But again, it's about the relationships we have and the trust we build. That's the only currency we have is, the trust, the credibility. And so you build that and you learn a lot in the process. And Mississippi is a pretty neat state, and it's got some wonderful people. We're not the hospitality state by accident. We have some really remarkable folks from all walks of life and backgrounds. So the Municipal League helps foster that, Ricky.
So, Billy, in order to succeed in a city, you got to have the infrastructure. We talked about that. You got to have an economic development plan. One of the biggest evolutions, I would say, looking back over the last several years, has been the emergence of the blue economy and what that's all about. There are great examples at the port, but you look at that whole area, whether it be the aquarium, now the crossover Highway 90, and then Barksdale Pavilion and the harbor and how it all connects together with the blue economy. The future is really bright when you think about that, isn't it?
So coming into office, we were still in a quasi recovery mode, even though we were years from Katrina. It just had this very profound, long lasting effect. And we had a lot of blight still. And, you don't miss what you never had, but we had an oceanarium. And, whether it was a sexy beast or not, we had an oceanarium, and a lot of folks came to it, and it was part of us, growing up and thinking back when we were kids and going to that thing. And Governor Bryan and I were talking. There were some federal funds available, and he helped Biloxi invest in the baseball stadium, which we supported. And he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I think we need an aquarium back." And he said, "Well, let me see what I can do. Let's get to work." And so between that and working with our council leadership, because it took the council to agree to that vision, to embrace that vision. And so we really wanted to do something transformational for Gulfport, understanding it was going to be a long haul, a heavy lift. But if we did some things that really showcased our waterfront, both from a tourism standpoint and an economic standpoint, and a visual standpoint, we could really transform the immediate area, and hopefully that would reverberate beyond just the downtown region, which we are seeing it become a draw. When Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo came down with Senator Wicker, she was blown away, and she's well-traveled, former governor of Rhode Island, and she couldn't believe what we had created down here. And we had hosted the meeting at the newly opened aquarium, and that was a huge investment. But it's already starting to pay dividends. So when you come down, and like you said, the blue economy, I think, is probably at present one of the most underappreciated assets that is just getting off the ground. But with the Roger Wicker Center down where NOAA and Naval Oceanographic is down there, it is all these things have come together to spur more investment, not just in the immediacy of downtown, but in the larger Gulfport area. With more restaurants, more businesses, and opportunity. We've got a multi-purpose building that hopefully will break ground by October, which is going to again continue to transform that skyline of Gulfport. There's just a lot of things to get excited about, and the pedestrian pathway, that crossover, that Secretary Chow, Transportation Secretary Chow, fell in love with when we suggested to her that it would not only enhance how we appear, but it would be a safety factor, moving over 100,000 people, 200,000 people a year across 90 safely from the aquarium campus. So there have been a lot of things to come together, a lot of vision, a lot of criticism, but really a lot of tribute. And I think long run, these, what I'll call visionary initiatives, will pay us off in the long run as far as how Gulfport is viewed, how our coast is appreciated. And I think it opens the door for a lot of things, economically, job-wise, just quality of life-wise. So
hey, we don't have to stop. I'm just going to check in with Kyle real quick. I see that the video has frozen. We're good to continue, Kyle. Okay, very good. We're good. Okay. Hey, listen. I was at the Gulfport Yacht Club recently. My granddaughter had a birthday party there. I had a chance to sit up top, and first of all, that's an incredible building that is built after Hurricane Katrina, looking out over the harbor, and then the other direction toward the port of Gulfport to see all the improvements, physical improvements there. Ocean Aero and what they're doing. I had Mark Henderson on recently, who's head of R&D there and technology there. What they're doing around the world, man. I mean, does that not define what we want to see in a blue economy, entrepreneurial effort in the city of Gulfport?
You talk about underappreciated. A lot of folks don't know just how much we do in the maritime field, but also globally with things, and you go all the way up to the industrial seaway, which is waterborne as well as far as dependent there. But there are so many things for the defense industry going on, for our manufacturing, for industry that are used around the world. We build everything from ships to submarine cones to these underwater drones that have more missions than you could shake a stick at. And they're a really great success story about moving from San Diego, coming here because of our quality of life, because of our cost of living and our access to the water. All those things have made it meaningful to them from a employment and a production, workforce and affordability standpoint. And they are really a feather in our cap, touting their experience. And so that is what I think you were getting at with the blue economy in general. There are so much research and development things that are coming our way that are probably going to define the next chapter in the Gulf Coast economic future.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. It's a small world, incidentally. Mark Henderson, he and his wife Leslie started the first brewery in Mississippi, and Magnolia Brewing has since sold that company. But he had a separate company called Log Linear Group and owned all these very sophisticated radar technology patents. One of the customers that he worked with out of his office here was Ocean Aero in San Diego. And then turns out they relocate here. And after he sells Magnolia Brewing, he actually goes to work with Ocean Aero. It's a small world, but it's always fun to see how these dots connect. You just never know. I'll give you just a really quick example. We were in Montana recently, actually last week. We went literally fly fishing in the middle of nowhere, down this long dirt road. We pulled up. There were a couple of cars there, and the car next to us, the guy sounded like he was from Mississippi. He was from Oxford. The whole carload was from Oxford. They had driven 29 miles to fish there, the top cutthroat trout fishing place in the world. It's a small world, man. And people who burn bridges, don't they amaze you?
Yeah, I think we talked about relationships a little earlier, but it really does make the difference. But, keeping those are important, and burning them just over, emotion that drives so many things that are wrong. If we just take emotion out and put reason back into discussions, even where there's disagreement, we can get a lot done.
Listen, when we come back, we'll talk about a few projects in Gulfport, and then what's the future hold. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. I have my friend, the mayor of the city of Gulfport, Billy Hewes, and we're reflecting. He's not running for re-election. It's been a terrific show. Hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have. Listen, Fishbone Alley, the Gulfport Harbor Lights. Lord, one of the top Harbor Light displays, our winter festival Christmas displays in the entire United States, the Gulfport Sportsplex expansions, and, man, the list just goes on and on. There's been no rest for the weary in the city of Gulfport, has there?
For the weary are the wicked. If you're going to grow, you have to push. You have to push yourself, and you have to find ways to find a path forward. And been very fortunate to be able to collaborate with a lot of community leaders and with some remarkable council members as well that have embraced what we wanted to do. And you mentioned the Harbor Lights, festival. If you take a chance on some festivals we put on, they're great, but they don't last. And some really just take hold. And with what has been done across the coast with Cruising the Coast, we have Cruising Central to Centennial Plaza, and Centennial Plaza is really coming into its own as a remarkable resort. But then you've got, December taken up with the Harbor Lights Winter Festival, which draws people from just about all over the country, but certainly the region with, I think last year we had 113,000 people in about 4 or 5 weeks. That's a lot. And so, we got some of the things like the Gumbo Festival that we've been doing, which brings great competition from across the coast, but really involves the mayors, even, bringing their best. So it's kind of fun. It extends our tourism season, but there's always things that we're looking to do and make either whether it's the entire community better or even individual activities like, there's some things that are going to come and be announced at Centennial Plaza that's going to even make it more attractive than it already is today. But we've got, the Sportsplex continues to grow. There's some new management up there, so we think a more professional aspect. And as we move forward with road projects, the legislature gave us $20 million for a commerce corridor up in that area, which will connect Highway 49 to Canal Road, linking a new path off of Landon Road, which is going to be expanded, which is very congested, to the Sportsplex. So there are great opportunities there. We have a $20 million federal grant from back in 2019 for a build grant that hopefully, if it comes to reality, it will link the north and south portion of the west side of 49 across Interstate 10. So again, giving people more access, more safety outlets, and more development opportunities for growth in Gulfport in that very critical corridor, which incorporates a lot of Orange Grove into it. So the focus is really widespread across this whole community. It's going to be funny. We're entering an election cycle, and people are going to say, man, look at it. They're paving roads. It must be election year. You always hear that. But the fact of the matter is, we've been engaged over the last decade, over $20 million of roads and improvements across this entire city. So there is no shortage of work to be done. We see opportunity, but we also see need. And there's a lot of folks asking for things, and you can't fill them all, but you do the best you can. And it has to be in collaboration with the council, who ultimately decides where projects will be where they will be funded. And then we just go from there, because it's our job to implement those decisions.
Listen, I worked after Hurricane Katrina. I worked very closely with Brent Warren. Watched him at the charrettes and all the recovery meetings, sometimes there 2 or 3 in the morning, the kind of heavy lifting that needed to take place. Then George Schlegel, we've had a history of mayors in Gulfport that didn't have to be mayor. That's just the reality. I hope the next mayor fits that description too. You don't want the next mayor to see it as a promotion in life. You want somebody who's going to give back to the community the way this string of mayors has been. And I'm excited for that. There's always going to be more work to do. But as you think about the future of Gulfport, what comes to mind most to you?
Well, I'll go with what I started at the beginning of the show. We've got some great foundational material, and that is our people. And there's a lot of character here, and there's a lot of heritage and history, and a lot of success. But that also begets, as you grow, you have growing pains, and you have to be able to manage those. But people who run for this office, you typically are wired for public service. They have some people say a sick desire to get engaged and expose themselves to a lot of criticism. But if you love where you live, and you have a knack for working with people and finding solutions, this is a good place to be. So I encourage anybody who is thinking about getting involved in public service to run. Even if you win, great, you've got a path and you've got a lot to do. If you lose, you still learn something from it, and you're better for it. I've learned more from losing races than I have from winning races, and it's kind of informed me and helped me to be successful as I take on other tasks. So as far as my future, Paula's got plenty of plans for me. I'll hopefully continue to play some music, and I will be engaged civically, but don't look for me to run for office ever again.
So, yeah, you'll be heavily involved in your insurance and real estate business, the very successful business. And, look forward to, we'll be chatting about efforts that you're involved with, I'm sure, as time goes on. But it's been a great opportunity to reflect on you. We'll probably have you back for sure before you actually exit office. But it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks a lot.
You bet. This has been Mayor Billy Hewes of Gulfport. Listen, have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.
I'll do the same.